Hi, my name is Faith Turner, and I'm an Indigenous storyteller and writer. Reading books has always been my medicine. Since I was a little girl, stories took me to faraway places and taught me so much. So I'll be here on Tuesdays with stories, art, and fun. First, we'll get started with checking this out. It says, let's see, be kind. Be creative. It also says be creative. Want to make the world a better place? It includes 18 cards for acts of kindness you can do today. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Oh, here we are. What does it say? Be kind. Little acts of kindness for kids. Peaceable kingdom. Let's see. Be kind. Leave a flower with this token for someone to enjoy. Pass it on, it says. It's good to pass on here. Pass on kindness. Let's see, let's move that away. Be kind. Tell someone 3 things you like about them. Pass it on. Or you can leave this in different places after you're done doing the challenge. Be kind. Ask someone to share a favorite memory. Be kind. When someone makes a mistake that's no big deal, just say, that's no big deal. Be kind. Draw a picture for someone. Be kind. Whoa. Okay, what'd that one say? Listen to someone talking when no one else is listening. Be kind. These are nice. I really like these. They're good ideas to always remember to be kind. What does that say? Thanks for making our world a kinder place. Our book for today is called The Train. It's written by Jodie Callaghan, illustrated by Lesley. Oh, and it was published by, Second Story Press. Right there. Ooh. Okay. Ashley was smaller than her sister, but old enough to walk herself to school every morning and back again at the end of the day. She took her time when she walked, kicking dirt to uncover stones and pieces of colored glass, which she kept on the windowsill in her bedroom. The sun was exceptionally bright this afternoon. Ashley had to shield her eyes with a hand to see the road. A car sped past her, bellowing up a cloud of dirt. It stung her eyes and she stopped to wipe them. Squinting, she followed the tire tracks to the road to where the old train station used to stand. Oh, you see someone? There's someone there walking. Oh, she knows him. A small figure stood in the tall grass by the tracks. Ashley recognized the way the figure leaned against his cane. She smiled and broke into a run. The beads of her backpack jingled with their tin, and the school box bounced heavy against her back. "Uncle!" she shouted. "Uncle!" Ashley's uncle turned and greeted her with a smile. "Hello, Toos," he said, extending a good arm to give her a hug. She rushed into him, burrowing her face into his wool jacket. He was warm against her cheek. She inhaled deeply. He smelled like sage. She pulled away and looked up at him. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" The corners of his eyes crinkled, and one side of his mouth turned up in a lopsided smile. Ashley's uncle looked at her, but she could see the light in his eyes. He focused his gaze down the train tracks. The planks of wood between the metal rails were rotting and broken from years and years of weather damage. It was easy to see the community no longer thought of this place. "I'm waiting for the train," he let out in a small voice. Ashley looked down the tracks too. It was worn and overgrown with weeds, no longer fit for a train. She giggled. "Uncle, the doesn't come here anymore." "I know, Toos." He shifted his weight onto his cane. His smile drooped slowly. "I know." Uncle hobbled over to a piece of concrete foundation left from the old train station. He sat down and balanced his cane atop his knees. Ashley followed, sitting in the tall grass by his feet. She plucked a dandelion and rubbed it against the back of her hand, tracing a heart with the yellow stain. "I'm sad because our people have forgotten about this place," her uncle said, looking off down the track. Ashley almost turned to see what he was looking at, but she knew nothing was there. She walked by this place 1,000 times. She focused on her uncle, studying the lines on his small face. Wisps of gray hair fluttered around his head as the wind blew from behind him, yet he looked young to her right now. "What happened?" she wondered aloud. "This place is very important to me and to people like me," he said proudly. "Why?" she asked. "What could be so important about a weeded over train track?" Uncle clutched his cane in both hands and planted the rubber end firmly in the ground. He leaned into it, looking at where she sat in the tall grass. "Oh, just a pretty eagle." Oh, look, she looks concerned for her uncle, and he looks like he's thinking hard, right? "A long time ago, there was a train that ran through this place," he began. "It would come maybe once a month to drop things off like rice and potatoes, stuff from outside of the reserve. Where are we? He took his handkerchief out of his pocket and placed it on his lap, picking at loose threads as he spoke. Giju would send me and your grandfather Timmy down to meet the train because we were the oldest." Well, he's remembering. "We would all line up to wait with our baskets, and after we got our rations, we would walk home. Timmy and I would always sneak a potato each to eat on the way. We ate them raw, like they were apples." Ashley giggled at the thought of Uncle Timmy and Uncle Small Boys eating raw potatoes. Why do you think they ate raw potatoes? Probably because they were hungry, huh? Rations are what the government used to give us, just little packages of food to try and help feed us. Her uncle continued. "One day, Giju sent the 4 oldest kids out with baskets. It was early fall, but she made us take our wet winter coats. She was crying, and we didn't know why. Giju didn't cry often, but when she got started, she couldn't stop. She each gave us a kiss and sent us to the train station." He looked down at the foundation he was sitting on. "When we arrived, there were children from all over the village. I saw my cousin Benny, so I asked him what was going on, and he didn't know." Uncle pointed to the broken track. The train was already there. A few men were standing by the open cargo doors, and they pointed at us and said, "Okay, you first." And then they put us on the train. Ashley wanted to speak it, but her uncle's expression stopped her. He began again. "My brother and sister were a bit younger than me, and they got put in a different car. Timmy and I were bigger, and they moved us to the front. And when we got to the school, the nuns told us to get inside. They took our clothes, they took our baskets, they cut off all our hair. They told us we were no longer native, and if we put up a fuss, we were hit. Sometimes worse." His voice trailed off into a whisper. "We weren't allowed to speak our language. We weren't allowed to be Nunu." Ashley's uncle picked up his handkerchief and blew his nose. He clutched it tightly in his right hand, his shoulders trembling softly. Why do you think he was trembling? I think maybe there's trauma he went through, scary stuff, and his body was reacting. "I was there for 6 years," he told his niece. "I didn't know how to speak any English, so I didn't talk to many people. I was like a little mouse, hiding in my room. He smiled softly, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes. I tried to be invisible, but they found me. Ashley stared down at the grass. She plucked a few pieces up and tied them into knots. Why did they do that? She looked up, and the deep lines in her uncle's face had softened. His eyes glittered as the sun shone down on his brown skin. Because we were different, he said calmly. Ashley's cheeks grew warmer. She felt angry and confused. Why didn't your mommy and daddy come get you? Why didn't they stop the train? She felt her own tears welling up. Her uncle shrugged. They didn't know. No one knew. But that train changed everything. Were you sad to leave? Ashley asked. He nodded, and his voice began to tremble again. There was nobody beside us waving goodbye. There was nobody there to hug us and to kiss us, or to remember who we were when we left that day. I'm sorry, Uncle. Ashley choked through her tears. He placed his good hand on her shoulder. It's not your fault, Toos. He lifted her chin and smiled at her. You and your sister make me so happy. When I hear you laugh and see you run and play, it makes me think that one day everything will be okay again. One day we won't be so sad. He paused and looked towards the track for a moment. I wanted you to know where your family has come from, Ashley, so you can be proud of where you are going. Ashley wiped her tears with her sleeve. Is that why you came to sit here, Uncle, to remember what happened? He nodded and thought for a moment. I come here to remember what happened, but I also come here to wait. What are you waiting for? She asked, craning her neck to look at the tracks broken and rusted, still in the evening light, just how she had left them. I'm waiting for what we lost that day to come back to us, he said. Why? She asked. Because if I don't, who will? He asked, closing his eyes tightly. He remembers the land, the animals. He remembers being on a boat and with his family and his gugum. And it was good. It was a good life. We were taught well. They thought it wasn't in a good way, but it was. Ashley reached up and touched Uncle's fingers. They uncurled, and her hand rested small inside his. He looked at his little niece. She smiled up at him and said, Don't worry, Uncle. I will wait with you.